Charles Kaufman, you are the president of Bnei Brith International.
I'm the immediate past president of Bnei Brith International.
All right. So you know that Bnei Brith has been forever, for what I know. But tell me, does it really have any influence from Jewish community, from Bnei Brith, outside the world, for the UN? Does it really have something like that there?
Well, we have many measurables that show the influence that we've had in the world. But, and there are many organizations that are very influential, but we've been influential since 1843, which makes us the oldest Jewish organization in the world. So we've been doing many things, beginning with widows and orphans back in 1843 in New York, when 12 Jewish immigrants from Germany came to the United States to meet unmet needs of that time. And since that time, we've grown and adapted to new needs that need to be met. So Bnei Brith has been many things over the years, serving Jewish youth and Jewish college students and women, men, and today our main three pillars are reduced to three main areas.
Right.
One is our advocacy area, where we are an NGO, a non-governmental organization at the United Nations. We were there from the very beginning, and we've been there ever since. So that's either in New York.
Let me interrupt you one
Sure.
second there. If you talk about the UN, and does Bnei Brith work for Israel there, or for the Jewish community? What's the paper? Because we know that when it comes to resolutions against any country,
Exactly.
the first one and the only one that gets punished or gets something, it's Israel. So
we work in support of Israel. We don't work for Israel,
All right.
so we're not on the payroll, but we're advocates for Israel, no matter who's in power, and we work for the security and sovereignty of Israel. Now, Israel is has been the target of hate and bias since the very beginning, even since the 1948 or the partition plan in 47. And since that time, there have been more resolutions placed against the state of Israel than any other country. One of the smallest countries on earth is the focus of all of the hatred, and it's truly tragic. And yet, one of the things that is turning the tide in the 193 nation General Assembly in New York is the good work that Israel is doing around the world, whether it's that are very big UN issues, whether it's hunger, whether it's water, health needs, cybersecurity.
We know.
So many things, so many good things. So every time there's a voice, every time Iran and some of the despots of the world raise their voice or chime in against Israel, Bnei Brith is there to speak out and point to the...
Not just against Jews, not just against, it's against any cruelty that happens in the world.
That's true. I mean, we have enough to deal with when it comes to Israel and the Jewish people around the world. But there are times when we speak out and we work on behalf of people everywhere. So particularly when there are disasters, which is another one of the main tasks that we perform, is that we have a disaster relief fund, which has been in operation actually since 1865. But
1865, all right.
In other words, we have engaged in, for example, in disaster relief efforts, even here in Mexico City, when with the various temblors in the past, but or Kobe, Japan, or Turkey, we're very much involved there. The Ukrainian situation, so.
Pity that it has to be so many things to do.
And there are many organizations that help in those disastrous situations. There's no one organization that can do it all. So it's great that the Jewish people have embraced Tikkun Olam and to repair the world, and we all together collaborate to do what we can. But you know, the Jewish community, and we know there are many organizations, but the Jewish community is a very diverse and sometimes splintered group, and we've always been that for thousands of years.
Yes.
You know, we've been from 12 tribes to lost tribes to various denominations. So we're a we're complex and complicated people sometimes. So there's room for all of us to come together to do the great work of the Jewish people.
So you talk about UN, you talk about disasters. What is the
third item would be our work for senior citizens. So B'nai Brith operates 38 housing developments, non-sectarian housing for people around the world. There are 38 developments in about 28 cities, mostly in the United States, but also in Canada, Haifa.
What does it mean to have? You support all that? You manage them? What is to mean
many of them
we have these buildings?
Well, we have coordinated the establishment of these housing developments, which are really nice. They're really terrific.
Yes.
But many of them are locally managed because really the best way to, in fact, same thing with B'nai Brith. We have offices in Uruguay and London and in Europe and Paris and so forth, Canada, of course the United States, New York, Washington. So we coordinate many things, but for these systems to work effectively, they're managed locally. So,
in how many countries there is B'nai Brith?
Oh, well, we generally say that we are in 50 to 60 countries. Remember, B'nai Brith is a membership organization.
Right.
So in other words, it's more than just sending our money to different countries. A lot of people say that we have operations in 100 countries. Well, if they're sending funding, which is great, if we were to count every place where we send our people or services or funding, there would be many countries. But we have members in 50 to 60 countries around the world.
You work more for Jewish communities, more for non-Jewish communities?
Well, as it turns out, I would say that most of the work that we do has an impact on Jewish communities, but much of the work that we do with in the general community is focused on the senior facilities. So in other words, the senior facilities are not just for Jewish residents. We have residents who are from foreign countries, and they're affordable housing, so they tend to be located in areas that benefit the Jewish community. However, I'm just thinking a few that are located in Texas, where I'm from, and maybe half or 60% of the residents are Jewish, but the other 40% or 50% are non-Jewish. In fact, when some of these housing developments have seders, the non-Jews who participate, they love it, they enjoy it. Anyways, we're very welcoming and very inclusive.
All right. In Latin America, I know that B'nai Brith exists for almost 200 years. We are 180 years, all right. We are almost 200 years.
Almost 180 years, that's right.
So, put in Latin America, many people don't know because B'nai Brith is not an organization that goes all around saying, we are here, we are here. They just help, or they make a lot of lobbying. What is your job now in Mexico? For example, now you are in Mexico. I know people from Peru, from Ecuador, from Colombia, Alberto Javiles, another one, Joseph Gabriel.
Rica, absolutely.
Panama. So, what is the job? Because there in Mexico you don't have a residence, but you have you do a good relations with government. Is that another part where you will intervene in government?
Absolutely. In other words, wherever we do, we are a nonpartisan organization, so we're not likely to get involved in domestic legislation, that sort of thing. So we're not a political organization in terms of being partisan for partisan types of things. However, when it comes to legislation affecting the Jewish people or senior citizens or just helping people in general for our common values, then if we see fit to comment on it, then we certainly do. We speak out on many issues. Now, I want to get back to Latin America a little bit.
Yes.
Our history, I mentioned earlier that we were founded in 1843, and it grew rapidly in the United States. Imagine back in 1843, there weren't many Jewish organizations, so B'nai Brith was everywhere. It became in every city, and still today, there are members throughout the country. We used to and still do operate with a series of lodges, but at the same time, the lodge concept is fallen away a little bit, and people join at large. But where there are still lodges, and there are many lodges in Europe and Latin America, they flourish very well, as they do in the United States. So anyway, back to the timeline. B'nai Brith moved into Europe in the 1880s. In fact, we were in Israel in 1888.
All right.
I was going to say 1883. I'm not sure whether it's 1883 or 1888.
A long time ago.
But we were there.
A little bit before the Israel existed.
Before Herzl met with the World Jewish Congress in 1897. And
That's
we were there
interesting,
before pre-state Israel. So in other words, we were in Israel before,
everything.
Before Israel was Israel. Or Israel wasn't a sovereign country at that time. So
you were not Zionists, but you were already there, and that was the beginning of the first immigrants and everything.
That's right. So wherever the diaspora moved, in other words, when people were dispersed and moved from Europe and they moved to Latin America,
yes.
Wherever people moved to new countries, there was a need. So after World War II, when many people moved to Latin America, many Europeans, and even before then, in the 1920s and the 1910s, when they moved from Turkey and so forth, there was a need for a B'nai Brith. And at that time, we're a dominant organization because there weren't that many organizations. The federation system wasn't fully in place yet. So that's how we have spread throughout the world.
You said something important, that it was a need for B'nai Brith. What is the need now for B'nai Brith, for example, in Mexico? I know you just did a charity for the Red Cross here in Mexico.
That's right, yeah.
What is the need? Tell us a little bit about this Red Cross and what is the need
exactly.
here?
Well, of course, our friend Dan Tartakovsky and certainly others. I was visiting with Arturo, and there's a new president here in Mexico.
With Sylvia Kleinberg, yes.
That's
chips.
right. And
chips, tell her chips.
That's right. So where there are, and the local people identify their own needs. So in other words, it is smart not to have a lot of duplication in different areas. So we, as do other organizations, look for various niches where we can fulfill a need. So just the other day, in the name of B'nai Brith, we made a delivery of, it may have been 150 really impressive first aid kits. And you can get from Dan the photographs.
We have photographs, we will put some for the Red Cross, Mexican Red Cross.
We're very, very grateful. So where there are slices of need, which are locally identified, those groups can determine what needs to be done. When it comes to larger issues, let's say if there's an earthquake, then B'nai Brith International can work together with its network of members around the world to help support the effort to help those communities.